Alright, welcome back, freaks. I am Retro Daddy, and today I'll be finishing the story about the time Melvin tried blaming me for when he looked up the, single time on the school computer during class. If you have not seen the first part, you should probably watch it because this is a part 2, and you gotta understand the freak level Melvin's on. But anyway, before I start, I'm just saying, wow, I did not expect my first part of the story time to do pretty well, views-wise and comments-wise, so just saying thanks. But now relax and listen, because this one's a little bit longer. To recap, this is after Melvin tried getting freaky with Olivia behind the shipping crate at school, but then got rejected, and for some reason we still remain friends with him. So after all that, Melvin starts trying to talk to Olivia again, and now he's talking about how, my bad grades are going to get me kicked out of my auntie and uncle's houses, and I really need a place to stay. Can I spend the night at your house, please? And like last time, we could tell that Melvin was lying, because a different story of why he was getting booed back to the lobby from his aunt and uncles, but now he's just straight up trying to guilt trip Olivia into getting diddled. But finally, after Melvin gets the picture that Olivia don't want to match his freak, he kind of just laid off, which was surprising because Melvin seemed to be the one that does not really like consent. But the reason he laid off will make a lot more sense to you in a bit. So it's your average 5th grade day, arguing who should have been the green ninja, calling your mom fat, whatever. But my teacher announced that there was to be a change of seats. And to explain the way the seating was, the whiteboard / projector or whatever was in the front of the class, and the desks were in a U shape with the bowl of the U facing the projector. So I got placed on one side of the U, and Melvin got placed on the side adjacent to me. Part of me was pretty happy since I don't gotta smell him no more because he kind of stank. But I was a little bummed because who else was going to yap to about Five Nights at Freddy's? It was 5th grade. But the worst part, I had to sit next to girls. So not only was I isolated, which was kind of bad, but I had to dodge the cooties. But anyways, I was sitting next to these girls. This actually played a really important role in the story. So our teachers, let's call her like Mrs. Prudence. Mrs. Prudence was reading a story to us, and I think it was called Blood on the River. But when I look over to Melvin, I see him staring at the girl next to me. Let's call her Maria. And Melvin wasn't giving her the kind of glance at your crush kind of stare. It was a freaky stare, like full on, I'm going to diddle you stare. And as this goes on, while the teacher's yapping about a Native American boy helping someone in her book, whatever, I noticed that Melvin was not staring at Maria's face. He was... How do I say this without getting in trouble? The desks were rather high, and let's say Melvin was staring below the desk. To put it clearly for those who don't understand, he was staring at the forbidden spot. Note that this is a 5th grader! This kid's balls haven't descended yet, and he's out here trying to catch glimpses. Now, I usually ain't a snitch, but if your boy's on the pathway to becoming P. Diddy, you gotta intervene. So yes, I had to violate the code, and I had to tell Maria what Melvin was doing. And after she turned and saw that Melvin was still Diddy dazed, she told Mrs. Prudence, and they had a little talk after class. Unfortunately, I wasn't there, but anyway, the next day rolls by, and when I take a seat, I notice that Melvin's in a different seat. And it is at an angle where he thankfully cannot look under her desk. So the day is rolling by, and then the recess bell rings. We go out to the playground, and this was after the weekend I went on a dirt biking trip at Hollister with my dad. And if you're curious, it was a little 85 Kawasaki, 2-stroke gang for life. If you say 4-stroke, you're a weenie. I'm sorry, but that's just the truth. Anyways, though, I was talking to Melvin about the trip and how I saw a 6-pointer buck. And for those who don't know, a 6-pointer buck means that the rack is a pretty good and rare size on the buck's head. But when I told Melvin that, he said, "Those don't exist." And I said, yes, they do. Then it becomes like that one scene from Lego Star Wars when they're saying, "Nuh-uh, yeah." And then after this continues on for a while, Melvin does something that even talking about it just gives me secondhand cringe. Like the secondhand cringe is coming inside of... He gets into some sort of anime stance and just throws a kick at me. And not even a good kick, he just throws his foot up. Me being Spider-Man, I catch his foot and like push it back down, which wasn't even that impressive because he just kind of like fling a foot at me. And since Melvin was on the smaller side, it wasn't even that hard. But after Melvin tried to Naruto kick me, whatever, the bell rang, and then we just awkwardly walked back to class like nothing happened. But after we walk back to class, Miss Prune starts yapping about Blood on the River again. Her class ends, and since it was a Thursday, this is actually when we have tech class in the computer lab. Once we get in, our teacher, let's call her Mrs. Bowie, she tells us to get in groups because we are going to start like a natural disaster kind of project on PowerPoint. So me, Melvin, and Olivia get in a group. And we all choose our natural disasters. I chose blizzards. Olivia, I think, chose hurricanes. And I forgot what Melvin chose, whatever. While we were doing our project, Melvin starts talking about Elf on the Shelves. And for your information, me and my family, we were never Santa believers. So 5th grade me just says, Elf on the Shelves don't exist. And Melvin gets super pressed over this. He says, yes, they do exist. And then says, mine made me a milkshake once. After we were done with our like, nuh-uh, yeah-huh game, whatever, Melvin starts pointing at pictures of Elf on the Shelves on his computer or whatever. But the pictures start getting increasingly weirder. It went from an elf on the shelves to like half-naked gnomes. So me and Olivia ignore Melvin and continue on our PowerPoint. After a couple minutes, our teacher just basically growls at Melvin, like full-on growls saying, Melvin, come here. And I think she had that software where you could see what the whole class is doing. So if little Lester was looking up something he shouldn't, Mrs. Bowie should see that. But after the whole class has the soft, ooh, I look back to watch Melvin, and when I look back, he then points at me. Mrs. Bowie then says, come here right now. I get up and the whole class is staring at me. 5th grade me was hella nervous because Mrs. Bowie sounds so angry, as if I drop-kicked her dog off the Taj Mahal. When I get to Mrs. Bowie's desk, she then looks at me and says, Melvin told me you told him to look up sex. And after hearing this, while the whole class is listening, may I remind you, I look at Melvin and I just crash out. I said, that's not true, check my search history, ask Olivia. And thankfully Mrs. Bowie wasn't a he said it first so it's true kind of teacher. Mrs. Bowie looks at Olivia and she, God bless, says I'm not time to look up anything. And then explains the whole elf on the shelf situation. She then looks at my computer and checks, and it's just my PowerPoint stuff. Then everyone looks to Melvin while he has his little hoodie down in the corner, and Mrs. Bowie looks at him and just says, you're suspended. If this isn't the greatest level of justice anyone has ever heard, I don't know what is. After hearing this, Melvin doesn't really say anything, which, honestly, kind of cool. Still on business. I thought, like, Mrs. Bowie would call in, like, the principal or something, which is something I have not really thought of until now. But anyway, I look at Melvin and I say, we're done. Then the bell rings, so I try to leave. He then starts following me, saying, please, bro, please. I didn't mean to. I'm sorry. I won't do it again, I swear. And I just kind of crash at him, explain why me and Olivia don't really mess with him anymore. And he is just on his knees begging me like a homeless man begging me for Fent. So after ignoring him, and without even looking back, I just walk away. And this was actually kind of the last of what me and Olivia saw of Melvin after that interaction. The only thing he would ever do is just diddy stare us or try to follow us around at lunch. But after telling him to go away again, he kind of just went away. And maybe it was because he didn't have any friends. He tried following us, but that's what happens when you blame your friend for looking up freaky wrestling. But anyways, the last time I had anything to do with Melvin, it was like in 6th grade for when he tried to spread like a rumor of me being gay. And hey, listen, the only underwear I sniff is my homies, so it ain't gay. But that was kind of the last I ever heard about Melvin. So this sadly concludes the end of the Melvin saga, which if you're at the end of the video, I just want to say thank you so much for watching. The Melvin saga is one of my favorite stories to tell people, and I'm happy I could put it out for you guys to listen to. But on a completely different note, I just got Modern Warfare 2, the OG one, and I gotta say, I didn't really like it at first because I was kept on getting quickscoped by a guy named Kyle with the intervention. But once I figured out how to play, it's been super fun. But I gotta say, I'm still more of a Black Ops 2 guy. If you want, comment your favorite Call of Duty, or just Diddy, if you want to hear my next story. And the next story will be something crazy, so you might want to hear it. Also, sorry for the long wait time. I'm still very, very new to making higher quality videos. I'm still trying to figure out stuff, so sorry for the long gaps. But when I eventually figure out, I'll pump out videos a lot faster. Lastly, I just want to put some different kinds of videos out to test the waters on some variety. Because I don't have infinite stories and I don't want to make them up because that's kind of lame. So I'm going to toss in some different forms of content. So I hope you will like it. So thank you so much.